It's often said that there's no such thing as bad publicity, but the negative exposure Highguard received during the Game Awards 2025 finals caused it to develop an unfairly poor reputation before it had a real chance to show what it could offer in the competitive live service market. Wildlight Entertainment's assault shooter is chasing an ambitious goal. Matches can last anywhere from a few minutes to 45 minutes, with two teams of 3 players competing through a mix of defense, heists, skirmishes, and sieges across different game modes. Highguard's core idea is innovative and genuinely eye-catching, but in executing that vision, the familiar elements it brings together may not add up to something more valuable than expected. There's a lot to like about Highguard, and it's quite easy to learn, which makes it immediately fun to play. However, its lack of sufficient depth and its inability to fully realize its ambitions raise questions about its long-term longevity as a competitive shooter.
Highguard is a jack of all trades, master of none.
Highguard is a game that does many things fairly well, but it doesn't truly excel in any one area. It combines familiar FPS mechanics, yet this familiarity ultimately works against it. Its base defense systems aren't as deep as Rainbow Six Siege. The abilities of each Warden don't feel as impactful as those in Valorant or Overwatch. Looting and item management are also quite simple compared to games like Apex Legends. That said, Highguard is very much its own game, and it blends these influences together competently. A match consists of 4 phases, though they often overlap. After choosing your character and deciding which fortress you want to defend, you're given a short window to reinforce it. This is followed by a looting phase, where you traverse a specific map, on foot or by summoning your mount, to find weapons, armor, gadgets, and consumables. Points of interest are scattered across the center of the map, and at one of them, the Shieldbreaker will appear later in the match. Both teams fight to claim this powerful sword, and attempt to deliver it to the enemy's fortress. Deploying the Shieldbreaker near a fortress opens a section of its dome shield and triggers a raid, granting the attacking team a limited number of respawns as they try to plant bombs at 3 locations. 2 of the bomb sites deal damage to the enemy's overall health, while detonating the 3rd immediately ends the game. A strong defense can punish the attacking team, and once a raid ends, if both teams still have health remaining, the cycle repeats and another looting phase begins. It may sound complicated at first, but playing just a few matches is enough to grasp Highguard's overall flow.
Highguard's combat is interesting and varied, but there's too much downtime.
Mechanically, Highguard is quite solid. With a familiar range of weapons, firefights can feel tense, and smart use of character abilities can give you a real edge. There are also some interesting trade-offs made to improve the overall gameplay. For example, your own and your teammates' footsteps are much quieter than those of your enemies, making positioning and movement, much like in a tactical shooter, critically important. Thanks to the large size of Highguard's maps, the scale of combat can vary significantly. I find close quarters fights, especially when battling over the Shieldbreaker or executing a raid, to be the most engaging, though the occasional long-range shootout in open areas can also be satisfying. Highguard is clearly structured to create a sense of ebb and flow in combat. Unfortunately, those lulls often turn into tedious interruptions. Each map's layout, with 2 fortresses on opposite ends and points of interest in the middle, means that the looting phase is usually devoid of interaction with the enemy team. For several minutes, you're simply riding around between treasure chests and glowing blue crystals, moving as fast as you can. There's little need to stay alert, since you're far more likely to see an opponent before ever hearing them approach. As a result, looting phases start to feel like intermissions. They're almost comparable to the buy phase in Counter-Strike, but without the convenience of being entirely menu-based. Highguard's item rarity distribution also makes this phase more tedious. At the start of a match, you can only find blue items, just one step above the gray gear you begin with. After one raid, purple items become available. After 2 raids, gold items are unlocked. As a result, legendary gear doesn't feel particularly exciting, since in any match that lasts long enough for that rarity to unlock, it's nearly guaranteed for almost everyone. There's also very little effort required to obtain it. Loot chests reset after every raid, so you can simply return to the same looting route and steadily upgrade your equipment. The brief downtime between Shieldbreaker fights and raids is, in theory, a commendable design choice. Coming out of a second raid, where both teams are on the brink of exhaustion, can genuinely feel like a moment to catch your breath. But then you end up spending several minutes doing the same things you've already done twice, opening chests, breaking crystals, and buying items from the merchant.
Highguard looks big, but it doesn't feel big.
Highguard's large maps feel, at least in part, like an excuse to hop on your horse and fire your weapon while riding, which is admittedly quite fun. However, the horse's low health pools and long cooldowns make sustained mounted combat difficult. In the end, horses are little more than a means of fast travel, which prevents the open map design from becoming truly exciting. It's easy to imagine small changes that could make the action feel more consistent. Larger teams, smaller maps, or simple MOBA-style objectives, for example. But we have to assume that Wildlight has thoroughly playtested its vision for Highguard. The game presents itself in a dramatic fashion, and the raids are almost convincing. Watching the siege tower deploy in front of the shield and seeing both teams prepare for battle suggests a massive finale. And then you realize there are only 6 players involved. There's a disconnect between Highguard's concept and its actual gameplay. The idea of preparing to fight over an artifact in order to earn the chance to raid the enemy fortress is implemented fairly well. My time with Highguard was enjoyable, but in practice, there's a noticeable lack of depth. There's nothing outright wrong with Highguard. It's not trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It's more like fitting a round peg into a slightly larger round hole. It works just fine, but it still doesn't feel quite right. Highguard is experiencing an identity crisis. It wants to be a tightly designed competitive shooter, but it's too large and too empty to maintain the necessary pressure. At the same time, it wants to be an ambitious new genre hybrid, yet its focus on small team engagements undercuts its sense of scale. Still, it's admirable that Highguard is attempting something genuinely new and compelling, and I hope ongoing development can help it overcome the negative reception and grow into a better game. Ultimately, Highguard isn't a game that will completely captivate you, but its design is undeniably competent. Each individual piece offers something fun, they just don't all come together perfectly. Thanks to its free-to-play model, Highguard isn't a hard sell. The real challenge is convincing players to move past the negative first impression created by its overblown marketing. Even though it's built from familiar mechanics, Highguard manages to do something entertaining and distinct, and with a few post-launch adjustments, it has real potential to improve.